How's it going everyone? Hope you're all keeping well and welcome back to a new video here for round 7 of the RTA Virtual Motorsport MX5 World Series. Getting towards the end of the season now, just 2 races left including this one. But going back to last week, round 6 at VIR, if you did miss that video, make sure you give it a look. Before we get into this one, as you can see, a very wet day here at Brands Hatch. Expecting kind of mixed conditions, a mixture of wet and drying to dry track conditions over the course of qualifying and the 3 races here tonight. But before we get into them, we'll take a quick look at the standings after 6 rounds. It is Ronan Doherty who continues to lead the way, has a very outside chance of rounding out the championship tonight, but so many points available in these RTA rounds that it is unlikely, but definitely put himself in a great position to secure at the final round in Bathurst. Dylan McClemens then in 2nd place, and Conor Melia fresh off the back of his first win in Irish Formula V's the weekend before sits in 3rd place. And Dermot Toomey continued to have a great season here, up in 4th place. And then for myself, moved up a couple of places after VIR into 22nd in the main standings. But then having a look at the B Series standings, Dave Collier just pulling slightly away from Emma Dempsey in the previous round, 5 points ahead, with Philip Upson a good few points back, probably too much to overcome at this stage, just with us lot usually not scoring too many points. And then for myself, moved up into 7th. Ollie Meredith overtook me and we managed to overtake Danny and Nathan, and things still well within range of getting into the top 5, maybe even the top 4 if get some good results and some others have a bit of bad luck. Getting back to business then here at what I mentioned is a very wet Brands Hatch, and conditions that I'm usually not very comfortable in or confident in, because haven't really raced in the wet a whole lot, and this is my first wet race since we raced in the LMP2 cars in RTA a couple of seasons ago, where we had 2 wet races in Portimao and Silverstone, because since then any of the wet races that RTA have, I have somehow managed to avoid them by not being around to race in them, including earlier in this season at Donington, which was also wet. So at a bit of a disadvantage, not really knowing as well or having as much experience as some of the others driving these cars in these conditions, but hopefully we can still just keep the car facing the right direction and have some good races. It's also worth mentioning that this is my first race around Brands Hatch on iRacing, and first time racing around here since I raced a GT Sport a good few years ago at this stage, so everything kind of working against me in this round, and just have to try and make the most of it. Also just going to mention, you might notice that I don't have any of my usual overlays on the screen. I didn't even realise that they weren't working until I've gone to edit this video, so bit less information than usual, still plenty with the normal iRacing overlays and be able to see what's going on. But now, finally getting to qualifying here. As you've probably been able to see in the background as I've been rambling on for the last little while, the rain has started to ease off, track starting to dry out a bit, but really the main challenge seems to be trying to get grip on all the gravel that is all over the track, especially out of Paddock Hill at the bottom of the hill and heading into Druids. But strangely enough, even though the track was drying and it should really be getting quicker then, I only really start to improve my times more now as the track starts to get a bit wetter, as it starts to drizzle with rain again. It's on the exit of Clark Curve, final corner of this Indy layout of Brands Hatch. going to cross the line to set a new personal best. So yeah, even though the track conditions were probably a bit better, or maybe it was just that's what it seemed it should have been because it looked like it was getting drier, just myself getting more confident with the car in these conditions, as there's somebody there, Brandon McCotton, just off the track. That was Canto actually. Brandon just ahead in the very distinctive Peter Griffin car, which if you have looked at the Gantry TV streams of this season, which you really should do, you would have seen it being the butt of a lot of jokes throughout the season. So yeah, don't know how I got those mixed up. Very hard to mistake Brandon for anybody else in that livery. But now coming to the end of this session and going on to what it will be my fastest lap of qualifying, and we're behind Brandon, who definitely isn't a bad benchmark to have, so if we can stay close to him throughout this lap, it should be a pretty good one. Heading into turn 1 then, braking and turning in, want to get on the throttle as early as you can, but don't want to run wide there onto the grass, which is very easy to do in these low grip conditions. Then into the Druids hairpin, again trying to get on the throttle as early as I can. Probably went a bit too wide there, not ideal. And then into turn 3, my most challenging corner on the track. Again, just no grip, and in the dry you want to use all that AstroTurf on the exit, but not as much in the wet. There's just no grip out there. And then into, I believe this is Surtees and McLaren, just lifting off there, and then a bit of a lift and a brake into the final corner. Again, want to get on the throttle as early as the grip will allow you to get a good exit on the longer straight off the track, keeping it tight to the inside. Not as tight as it probably should have been there, but coming up across the line then, and that was our best lap in this session at 59.2. And I was going to go for another lap, but on the exit of Paddock Hill, just slide into the barrier. After everything was said and done then, that lap saw me down in 17th place, over 2 seconds off pole position man of Dylan McClemens, with Jordan Kelly and Robbie Callahan rounding out the top 3. So not the best session for myself, like I mentioned, wasn't too comfortable going into this. And yeah, it really showed there. A short lap and still being that far off pole position isn't great. And you can see there down near the bottom of those in the B Championship as well. So even though I don't think my pace is great, probably just keeping it clean in this one in tricky conditions, we'll see a good few spots gained in both or in all 3 races. So that'll be the aim, especially in this first race, and hopefully we can get a good result and a better starting position for the second race. So as the lights are about to come on here, the rain is teeming down now for the start of this race. The green lights go on, and I wasn't sure really how to start this car in slippier conditions, so just kind of stuck with what I've been doing all season, which it seemed to be getting me pretty good starts, and it does so on this occasion as well. On the outside of turn 1 probably isn't the best place to be, but we're on the outside of Dave Collier, now able to get that move done, and now we're coming under pressure from Emma Dempsey, having a look down our inside, taking it nice and wide through Druids, still leaving enough room for Emma there, who seemed to have a bit of a slide, as I have the same on the exit, but keep the car facing in the right direction. And then heading into turn 3, just kind of slotting into line behind Dave, but he doesn't get a great exit, and I think he had a bit of a moment there, ended up sliding into me and killing my momentum a bit, which is unfortunate. Could have had a look down his inside into these corners here, but we stay behind for now. We do get a position up on Ross Wheatley, who had a moment, heads off into the grass on the infield. And as we come up now to finish the end of the first lap in the slipstream of Dave Collier, we're going to move up from 17th into, I think that is 15th, and then up into 14th, getting the move done, or up into 15th now it is, after getting past Dave, who you can see there in the mirror just ran a bit wide on the exit into the gravel there. So the B Series Championship leader not having the greatest start here at Brands Hatch. As up ahead, Ronan Duffy and Ollie Meredith going side by side, bit of door banging there, and Ollie going a bit wide on the exit of turn 4. Looks like they're going to be going side by side once again, so making sure to be aware of any of that, but Ronan backs out and stays behind for the time being.
Okay,
looking up ahead, there seems like there's already a bit of a break in the pack, even as we just get to the end of lap 1 here, but still very close. So even though my qualifying or raw pace isn't the best, just with all this battling and a slipstream in race, we're able to stick with these lot for the time being.
14th
into turn 1 then. Unfortunately, our race 1 is going to unravel, just going a bit wide on the exit of Paddock Hill, and just like we did at the end of qualifying, sliding off into the barrier and end up having to get a tow back to the pits.
You're going the wrong way.
So after getting the repairs done, I did go back out on track, more so to get a bit more practice than anything else, and as you can see, it was well needed, going for a slide through turn 3 on the entry, and then just a little bit later we managed to get past Paul Sheen, who is a lap or 2 ahead, but he's after having a few moments, and we seem to have better pace at this point of the race. So get a move done into turn 1, as there's an incident on the exit of turn 1, but we just get a slide ourselves and go for our own spin, which is unfortunate, because you can see there that car just ahead is Jamal, who is also after having his own incident, and we're on the same lap, so that is for position as on the entry into Druids, just getting out of the way of Dylan, who has put another lap on us, him leading the race, and now Brandon McConnell is right behind, so don't want to get involved in deciding the race here, so getting out of his way as well.
Right side's clear.
Which does mean that we lose a bit of ground on Jamal, but luckily into the final corner, him getting out of the way of Brandon also loses him a bit time, as we have a look down the inside. Unfortunately not able to get the run there, and Jamal does get a better exit with the outside line, and we stay behind in P19 for now. At the end of that very next lap then, looking in the mirror behind, Jordan Kelly is after catching up to us as well, so once again just trying to stay out of his way, and we're actually losing a bit of ground on Jamal over that lap as we head on to the final one. So braking nice and early into turn 1, don't want to take Jordan out, and I kind of conceded that I wasn't going to catch Jamal in this lap, just wasn't very confident in my paces. Jordan had a bit of a slide there, so didn't want to go for a move on him, so just backed out of it, and I think that was Brandon McConnell, who was also after having a slide on the bottom of Paddock Hill bend, so I don't think we're going to get the position on him. I think he was still going, and even if he did retire, he's already after completing more laps than I did, and you can just see over this not even half a lap how much Jordan is after pulling the gap on myself, so just highlighting the pace difference between the top and towards the bottom drivers on this day. But luckily for myself, on the exit of the final corner of the race, Jamal goes for a slide, and we get one more position, crossing the line to finish in P18. So yeah, 18th it was then, 2 laps down on Dylan McClemens, who, looking at the gaps throughout this season, won this one in pretty dominant fashion, over 6.5 seconds ahead of Jordan, and then Peter McCann taking a very good 3rd place on the podium. Looking at the Beast Championship then, Ronan Duffy taking the win there ahead of Ollie Meredith and Danny Dempsey in 3rd. Championship contenders Dave Collier up in 15th and Emma Dempsey down in 20th, so Dave getting a good few points over Emma in that race, but starting 1 position down from where we started race 1 in race 2, and going to be a very interesting one because the weather is going to throw a bit of a curveball. So as we get ready to go for this one, as I mentioned, the weather it looks very clear, the track looks pretty dry, but there is still a mix of strategy as the lights go green, with most of the drivers I think like myself on the wet tyres, but a few are after opting for the dries, and you can see already the spray that's being caused into turn 1, which indicates that it's still pretty wet out here. And on the exit of turn 1 you can see off the barrier that was race 1 winner and pole sitter Dylan McClemens on dry tyres after just sliding off the track. There's another car in the barriers heading into turn 2, and already in the first 2 corners it is clear that this track is wet tyres and it is not ready for dries. We managed to get past Dave Collier there, Connor Melia on the dries as well. We managed to get down the inside of him, which is not something that I say very regularly, getting a pass on the top drivers. There was a few more off in the grass there as well, and yeah, this first lap has been absolute chaos with those on dry tyres not getting the grip they need. Campto there pulling into the pits to change from the dries to the wets, and as we come across the line to finish a very eventful opening lap, we have moved from P17 up into P9, so 8 places gained on the first lap, and yeah, it's really just from picking the right tyres. And I was very much tempted to go for the dries because my pace isn't good anyway. I didn't think I'd have too much to lose, but I'm very glad with my decision to play conservative and go on to the wets. Skipping ahead to lap 3 then, a bit of an incident there in turn 2, and Ronan Doherty it was caught up in that, who he went on to the wets I believe, so one of the front runners, he was in second place when he had that crash there, and yeah, managed to get the pass on him with an incident with some back markers, but Ronan is still going, and I expect that he will catch up and pass me relatively quickly. And the chaos of this race just continues to keep coming, as through turn 3 up ahead Ronan Duffy was off the track, and then he goes for another slide as he rejoins, and we just managed to avoid him there. Wasn't too sure which way the car was going to spin, so had to just pick a side, commit to it, and luckily it was the right one. And then into the final corner, Paul Sheehan also going for a slide, and we managed to get past him before he spins back around and clips the rear end. So it's a race of fine margins here at Brands Hatch for this second race, and luckily so far we're coming out on the right side of them. But like I had mentioned, now Ronan Doherty is big in the rear view mirrors even without a bumper, and he is going to get past. You can see me here pulling to the left hand side, not to defend, just to let Ronan go, because he's been catching up on me slowly but surely, and with how slowly he caught up on me compared to what I thought he would be, I think he was actually on the dry tyres, and the track is probably just at the crossover now, and yeah, it's just his pace over me made him able to catch up and get past, and it was a better option to just let him go there. Hopefully he can catch up to some of the lads ahead, and they'll battle, and it'll mean that I can catch up then and make a few places on some drivers that I am more closely aligned to in terms of pace and skill level.
Car is 2 laps behind.
And because of that, I now find myself in 8th place, which would be reverse grid pole for the final race here in Brands Hatch. But True Druids just getting a bit too eager on the throttle on lap 9 and go for a spin. Luckily I am a good bit behind most of the cars behind, just Ronan Duffy getting past there to take 8th place, demoting me down into P9, which does mean we're not going to get that reverse grid pole unless we make another place up, but still managed to stay ahead of the dry tyre runners. The next few laps then were pretty boring, to be honest. Not near anybody to either defend or attack until we've caught up to Paul Sheehan here. Just been making sure to be consistent as I can and just keeping it safe and keeping it on the black stuff. But now we're going to try and get past Paul, who we are a bit quicker than even on the straight here, you can see. and then into turn 1, putting a pretty robust move there, trading a bit of paint, but he wasn't seeming to be willing to get out of the way, even though he's a lap down. Didn't make it too easy, so had to do what had to be done there and managed to get the pass done. And that was pretty much it for this one then. A race spent more so avoiding incidents than actual race, but does end in a very surprising result, which I wasn't expecting around here today, but we finished race 2 in 9th place. So 9th it was then, up 9 places from where I started, the most gained of anyone in this race, but still 41 seconds behind Brandon McCaughan, who took the win here, ahead of Robbie Callahan and Peter McCann taking another 3rd place finish. As for the B series, Danny Dempsey getting a very good result there, up in P6. Ronan Duffy in 8th, just ahead of me, getting reverse grid pole because of that spin that I had. And yeah, last car on the lead lap, which, look, I know my pace isn't great, so it's nice that I didn't get lapped, but I know that this result was mainly, pretty much only because of the tyre situation, and I'm expecting that I'll probably lose a good couple of places in this next race. So it'll all be about damage limitation, avoiding incidents again, and hopefully get a good result. So for race 3 now, there's definitely no questions about which tyres to use in this one, as it is absolutely bucketing it down here at Brands Hatch as the lights go green for the final time here in round 7. And once again we get a pretty good start, get a better one than Brandon just ahead. We're not able to get down the inside and try and make a move there. On the outside then, which isn't really where you want to be, get kind of shuffled out there, get passed by Campto, Connor, Dylan. Now Emma is on our inside as well as a couple of other cars. I think we might be 3 wide there as Dylan gets sent for a spin. 2nd place in the championship is sent around in the final race here in the 2nd last round. As up ahead there's another car sideways. There's cars all over the place. I didn't know where that car that was on the grass was going to slide back onto the track, so took a nice wide one there as Ollie goes down our inside and then kind of cuts our nose off in a very aggressive and a bit too close in my opinion there, but we all managed to survive as Ollie's been very aggressive here in the final corner, trying to go around the outside of Emma. Emma having none of it, getting on the power, nice and early, getting a good exit and slapping back in front, holding on to that place. But yeah, very eventful opening lap here in the final race. Started P9, we've now moved down into P12, so lost a couple of positions there. Probably got overtaken by more than 3 people, but a couple of incidents for others, and not a bad start by myself. We managed to only lose 3 as into Druids now. Connor had a bit of a moment on the exit of Paddock Hill, so he's now side by side and now behind Emma. So difficult start once again here for Connor, but at least he's on the right tyres in this race, and someone of his speed will definitely get that place back, as well as a few more, I would imagine. But yeah, keeping it nice and tidy here in the 3rd race as Ollie up ahead goes for a bit of a slide. He manages to hold it. You see a slide like that and it nearly looks worse from this angle than it would in the cars. Sure, I've had a good few moments myself that have looked a bit ropey, but you don't feel as bad when you're driving it. It's just making sure that you can save them is the main thing, especially through turn 1 here. You can see in a right hander most of the time I think I was turning left. But into Druids now, Dylan right behind after his spin. He's already caught up and I'm sure he is going to waste no time in getting back past, so he can move further up the field. And like I mentioned, into turn 3, diving it down the inside. And now we're side by side heading into the final part of the lap. Dylan just had a bit of an overlap there, so he sends it once again. Bit of contact, and that contact just unsettles my car and we have to go across the grass. Luckily don't spin fully out, lose a bit of time and lost position to Ross, who gets past. And yeah, at this point in the race, I thought that was a bit of an overly aggressive move by Dylan, but looking back on it, it was just hard race and a bit of door banging. Yeah, not really a fair enough move, and it wasn't the contact that sent me for a spin. It was just, yeah, getting a bit distracted, a bit hot-headed because of that. Heading into Druids once again then, Ronan Duffy down the inside this time. We leave him space around the outside and he managed to get that move done. We seem to get a better exit there, just bumping into the back of him, but not able to get back down the inside on this occasion. But once again, get another good run. Putting their nose up the inside, wasn't really going to go for a move there. I was just hoping to maybe put him off a bit. He did seem to go a little bit wide there, so putting him off a small bit. And through the final corner then, trying to get a good exit on Ronan, not really able to. And in the mirror you can see another very fast driver, Jordan Kelly, right behind me. Now on our left hand side, I'm going to make a move. I didn't fight this one too much. I knew Jordan wasn't my race here and just wanted to not lose too much time fighting Ronan. And Ronan gets overtaken then by Jordan into Druids. And now we have Conor Melia right behind in another blue and white car. So once again, not going to fight this too much, and I was leaving space down the inside because I was expecting Conor to go for it, and he ended up not going for it, and I just put a wheel onto the grass and couldn't slow down or steer then. Went off the track in turn 3 and lose another good lot of time and one place. There's a big incident up ahead and I was distracted by that then, and once again going for another spin. Myself and Ross now making our way across the grass, being sure to come back onto the track nice and safely. So hasn't been a good last couple of laps here for myself, losing a lot of time and positions, getting very frustrated because of that. Yeah, just trying to calm myself down now for the rest of the race and not make any more mistakes. For the next lap or two, we've slowly caught up to this pack of 3, Jamal, Dave and Paul, who have been having their own little fight, which has allowed me to close the gap into turn 1. Having a little look down the inside of Paul, again wasn't really going to go for a move, just showing my nose to try and put him off. And I think it worked a little bit because he made a bit of contact with the rear end of Dave. Luckily both drivers still managed to survive, unfortunately not able to get a move done on this occasion. Paul having a bit of a wiggle out of Druids, heading down into turn 3, getting nice and close. I was trying to set up a good exit, not really getting as good as I would have liked because get a bit checked up behind Paul. Now we're on the inside heading into turn 4 with the inside line. We brake a bit later, we're side by side and we make a bit of contact, and just seems to be my luck lately with racing. Seems pretty similar to the contact I had with Dylan, and I was in the position that Dylan was in, and this time I was the one that came out worse and we lose more time and another spot to Ross Wheatley. You can see there the little head shake, not too happy with how things are going. We've all been in these situations when we're racing, and it gets to a point where you're making so many mistakes and things aren't going your way, where you just start to lose concentration and kind of give up, and that's when more mistakes pile on. As we managed to get past Ross there, who's having his own little issue on the bottom of Paddock Hill Bend. 18th. And then on the very next lap you can see up ahead Paul is after going for a full 360 as well, and I don't know if I was a bit caught out and distracted by that, but I ended up going off the track myself, and we just managed to get around the outside of Paul then in Druids, and just managed to secure that position heading into turn 3. Not a little bit wide, but managed to not make too much of a balls of it and got that place for now. But still frustrated for the last couple of corners because of my own mistake through Paddock Hill, and meant that I wasn't able to pull a gap to Paul like I really should have been, and then making another small error in the final corner, getting a bit of a slide and not the greatest run here, but luckily we don't go for a spin this time. and we hold on to 17th place. I'm trying to cut down this video as much as I can, but there just seems to be one thing after another here, as through turn 1, not getting the right line, getting a bit of a slide and a few snaps, going too wide, and now Paul is back down our inside. Don't know what really happened with him there, but completely missed his braking point. Nearly looked like it was trying to take me out, but I don't think it was. I think it was just a mistake, but it was that kind of an error where it looked like he just didn't brake. But yeah, we managed to not get hit there and retain our position, but not for long, as just a couple of corners later going for another spin in the final 2 corners, this time having to wait for those 2 cars behind us to go past before we join the track, and then just managing to get out of the way of Ronan Doherty and that Brandon McCaughey, leaders of the race. So now we have gone a lap down with 8 minutes left on the clock, and at this point I just want this race to be over and done with. But obviously there's going to be time for even more drama. Exit of turn 1 once again, Ross goes for a bit of a spin, and we get that move back up into P18, and then a couple of laps later getting past Paul, who doesn't do the best rejoin there, up into now what is P15 because of a few other people having crashes as well and passing those into pits over the last lap or so. But the good times could only last for so long before I threw it off the track again on the entry into turn 3, and just being nice and careful not to get in the way of Dermot and Campto there as they lap us. So just like I did earlier in the race, just dipping a wall on the grass on the entry into turn 3, and then like I've done a couple of times throughout this race into the second to last and last corner, just going for a bit of a slide. Luckily managed to catch it this time, and we're going to stay ahead of Paul for the time being on the run into turn 1. And just behind Paul you can see in the bottom right Connor and Jordan, who we let pass earlier in the race, so they're already going to put a lap on us as into Paddock Hill. Paul having a look down the inside, and looking in the mirror, I think that was Jordan who has all sorts of damage to his front bumper, and he's still putting a lap on us. In all of that, me running off the track, Paul gets past us, Connor gets past the 2 of us. I think there was a bit of contact between the 2 of them as well, and then into turn 3, Paul going for a big slide. I feel like I've done very well there to avoid that. I really had to back out of it. No, back out of the throttle to let Jordan lap us. Paul not being as courteous as there's contact there between the 2 of them, and luckily for those 2 they managed to both survive. Unfortunate for me because it means I don't get a position or 2, but yeah, very eventful couple of corners there, just an eventful lap with everything that you've just seen really. And yeah, it's been a very eventful race, not in the way that I would like it to be. Very bad events for myself for the most part, but still exciting because at least I have Paul and Ross close around to have a bit of a battle with, and it's not like I'm just driving around here by myself and making these mistakes, because I think if I didn't have somebody to fight with at this stage, I would have just parked the car and gave up. It's just the kind of mood I was in at this point, and Paul not having much better luck than I am in this race 3 here this evening, going for a spin on the exit of turn 3, and it seems like nobody wants to finish in 15th here, because once somebody gets up there we seem to be making a mistake, going for a spin and letting somebody else take over for them to make a mistake. And of course I'm not going to be the one to break that tradition, and just about a lap later, once again into the second to last corner, losing the back end and going for a wee pirouette. Paul gets past there, as does Jamal, who has now put a lap on us. Yeah, that shows I think how badly this race has been going. Ross still behind, he's well within the slipstream now, so he could go for a move into turn 1, we'll have to wait and see as we cross the line with just 30 seconds left now, so I think one more lap after this one and this nightmare will be over.
There's an
On
incident
the exit
in
of Paddock
DRIES.
Hill, going off the track a bit there. Luckily we don't head off into the gravel, and would you believe it, Paul is after going for another half spin. Unfortunately we're not able to close the gap just yet, so breaking the tradition a little bit there. I thought was that if you're in 15th you have to let somebody else go past, which are a mistake, but Paul managed to keep it on this occasion. Myself and Ross are too far behind from our previous mistakes to take advantage of it. But coming around the final corner then to start the last lap, still close enough that there is a chance that we could get this position on Paul. I think it would mean that he would have to make a mistake. 1.5 seconds behind is quite the margin to make up when you don't really have any pace.
One more lap to go.
We'll see what we can do. I'm going to stay on board, might as well, for this last lap. Through Paddock Hill, Paul up ahead going for a bit of a slide it looked like, but he managed to control it nicely. Heading into DRIES then. Getting good rotation there on all the gravels, but not able to get good enough to get too close to Paul. We are after closing the gap by around a second nearly, as I go into the wrong gear there, I think, on the exit of turn 3, which isn't ideal with trying to get close into the final two corners. Sending it pretty hard there through our nemesis of a second to last corner. Through the last corner, Paul going for a full drift there, it looked like, getting a bit on the grass, but he managed to control it nicely, and he's going to finish in P15, just ahead of myself, down in 16th place, after what I think is the worst race of the season so far for myself.
16th place. Okay, it's over.
So 16th it was then, and apologies for the very long section there for race 3, for what was such a terrible race for myself. There was just a lot that happened, so I just wanted to cover it all. Brandon McCotton taking the win ahead of Ronan Doherty, and him just ahead of championship rival Dylan McClemens. And then in terms of the B championship, Emma Dempsey in first, Jamal in second, so good result there for Jamal. And championship leader heading into this one, Dave Collier, not having a great race, DNFing down in P19 along with Robbie Callahan and Danny Dempsey. So what that means for the standings heading into the final round of the season, Ronan Doherty leads by a sizable margin, 58 points over Dylan McClemens. Conor Melia in third place. Important to note that those 58 points don't include the drop rounds, which there is one of. Everybody's worst result is omitted from the standings as long as they don't have a penalty in that round. So not sure what the situation is there between the top two with the drop rounds included, but it looks pretty unlikely that Dylan will be able to overcome that margin in the final round. But you never know, Dylan's a very fast driver and Ronan could have an off day, a bit of bad luck, and anything could happen there. And then for the B series, Dave Collier and Emma Dempsey level on points because of Emma's 15 points penalty earlier in the season. I do kind of know the situation on this with the drop rounds because I paid more attention to this, but Dave does have, I think it's a 14 point lead heading into the final round over Emma. Myself down in 7th place, still well within reach of getting a top 5, I think. Only 7 points separating myself, Ross and Ollie, so have to see what happens in what will surely be a very chaotic final round in these cars around Mount Panorama in Bathurst. But that is it for this video. I hope you did enjoy. If you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe before you go so you don't miss the season finale. But until then, thanks for watching. See you then.